This weekend, a 6-year-old girl died in one of their parks on Sunday.
What's interesting about the disclosure forms that you sign when you go there, you waive everything.
They're going to force you into a secret arbitration. They're going to say you can't talk to the press. You signed a confidentiality agreement. You have an NDA because you signed your kid in at a birthday party.
So what alternative do you have? There's no jury of your peers.
Arbitration is a secret court system that exists in the United States. And in that secret court system, the entire thing is run by a monopoly or a cartel called AAA. In arbitration, you will lose 97% of the time. You want to go to a nursing home for your parents? Arbitration. You want to take your dog to the vet? Arbitration. You want to buy a washer and dryer? You don't know it, but when you get home and open the box, on the documents inside that box, arbitration. And because you plug it in, it goes into effect. What it really is the ultimate cheat code for corporations, all corporations, to evade free market responsibility.
Okay, so real quick, I want to hear this story about Toys R Us and why I'm wrong.
Well, Toys R Us, it's really easy to say that they forfeited their autonomy to Amazon, or that they trusted that Amazon was going to help deliver them to the next phase, but they were already so crippled at that point intentionally.
By debt?
Through very deliberate excavation by Bain Capital, KKR, Volcaro, I think is the other one, okay? So you have these 3 private equity firms that bought them for $6.6 billion, okay? Yeah. And 5.6 of that was debt that they stacked on top of Toys R Us. And Toys R Us was a very well-oiled machine, not just because of Toys R Us, but because of Babies R Us, Bye Bye Baby, because of their entire child sphere. Yeah, there was nowhere else to buy all those things. They owned, no matter what people thought about what they wanted to buy toy-wise online, when it came to baby showers, women still wanted to go in and scan what they wanted. That's right. They wanted to look and touch things. So Babies R Us was carrying that brand very effectively.
I remember when we went to look at strollers.
Yeah, you want to see it, you want to touch it, you want to feel it. And the women, so it dominated the baby shower industry during a period of time when there was quite a baby boom throughout the 90s, and money was good, and people were they were procreating, right?
You were going to say fornicating.
I almost there, but I caught myself. So what you have is $6.6 billion that was stacked on top of them by Bain Capital and KKR, $5.6 billion just directly on the company. But that is not what killed them. That was certainly painful because they were making interest-only payments and dividending everything else back to themselves through these egregious management fees. So they came in, they bought them, they had a well-oiled machine, and they said, well, you're going to pay us $4 million a month just to manage you, which they didn't need, right? Then they started slashing staffing, so the service started to drop. But more than anything, their infrastructure was targeted for immediate dividends, okay? So they owned their entire fleet of trucks. They owned all of their warehouses. They owned the real estate under the stores. So immediately they were sell all the real estate, and they sold it to their own affiliated private equity or real estate investment trusts at discounts, and then leased it back at huge premiums, okay? So all of a sudden they had leases they'd never had before, which is exactly what's happening in Las Vegas right now. MGM, all of them. Caesars, all of them, right? You're talking $8 billion a year on one brand. Yeah. Right? They're paying $7 million a day in
and the
interest.
Debt service is crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah. So this is exactly what's happening in Vegas right now, that is bankrupting Vegas and destroying it in the process. It's destroyed the culture. So then they sold all the real estate and they leased it back. Then they sold all the warehouses. They had their own system of warehouses throughout the whole country their trucks operated off of. They sold all those, leased them back, again, to an affiliated company, right? Then they sold all the trucks. They sold all the trucks, laid off all the drivers, and started going through a bunch of different distributors where they were going through bidding processes and they were paying higher rates, right? And they no longer had anything left in the warehouses to fall back on in economic downturns. Before, when there was a decline in sales, or when they were having a little bit of trouble, or when there was a shift in the market, they could rely on their dead stock in the warehouses. They could tighten their belts. They could rely on their own supply chain. All of that was gone, and none of that went to pay that $5.6 billion in debt. Every single dollar was dividended back to KKR and Bain Capital. And then they each put a lien on all of the holdings of Toys R Us. So when they finally did go under, when they finally went under, they put the employees last in line so that all the employees got screwed over, and the private equity firms got made even more whole, even though they'd already gotten out with $10 billion in dividends. So it's horrifying.
So the story of them outsourcing themselves to Amazon is not the story at all.
I mean, it's the one Mitt Romney likes.
Yeah, but that because it relieves him from any culpability.
He didn't do it. Yeah. He didn't kill one of the most exceptional brands. You know, it's what KKR and what Bain Capital need the world to believe. They need the world to believe that because they can keep doing what they're doing if it was really just a failure to innovate.
So if private equity in general is the devil, but
Private equity is not the devil. If your mom gives you money to start a business, that's private equity. Okay, private equity is not the
private
devil.
equity doesn't give you money to start a business.
If it's not public money, it's private equity, right? If somebody gives you money and invests in you, it can be done well. There are companies that are ethical, that are private equity firms. Levine Lichtenstein's a really good example, right? Open Humes Incubator is a really great example.
Yeah.
Okay, these are companies that build up the things that they buy. But eventually, when those funds close out, Levine Lichtenstein has to flip them to somebody else, okay?
Yeah.
Levine Lichtenstein just saved Tropical Smoothie Cafe. They did everything right to save it and bring it back from the precipice of the cliff it was going over. And they did. But that fund needed to close out and they flipped it to Blackstone.
Sugar smoothies. Something
So
that everybody needs. Let me ask you a question. For the listeners that want to understand, right, access to capital.
Sure.
It's not private equity or borrowing from mom.
Yeah.
Right. It's venture capital.
Sure.
It's private equity.
Sure.
Right. Of course,
there are lots of options.
There's lots of options, but just for the listeners, break down the difference between VC and private equity. How about that?
Well, you get a lot more negotiating power with VC, right? You can decide how your cap tables are designed. You can decide what you want to give up, whether you want to give up equity, whether you want to give up decision making, whether you want to give up board seats. If you're talking about VC, you at least have some leverage. You have some decision making. When it comes to private equity, no matter what you're doing, eventually there's going to come a hostile moment where you lose the leverage you thought you had in most cases that I've seen where pirate-like private equity firms exist.
It's funny you say like pirate-like when and sort of this is the extent of my sort of knowledge about private equity, having worked with them for like the last 40 years. They don't get into a situation where they're at risk of anything.
No.
Right, and so unlike a VC, private equities generally want controlling interest in your company.
Venture capital wants you to do well, right? They're coming in and they're taking some risk. Yeah. There's some risk,
sure,
but they only take that risk if they believe there's a possibility of risk. They have to believe in you, right? All that private equity in their pirate-like iteration has to believe is that you have enough they can squeeze out to make it worth their time.
That's right.
They just need to know that there's enough they can strip mine that it doesn't matter what happens. Yeah. And oftentimes the strip mining begins before the chance for success does.
So give us a timeline, right? If you're a business and you have, let's say, 50 million in revenue, and the arc of your business over the next 5 years is getting to 500 million in revenue, and private equity comes in, they say, well, hey, and it doesn't matter, right? I can be brand agnostic on what private equity firm, but they come in and they say, hey, we've worked with a lot of people in your industry, whether it's home services and software, doesn't matter. We have a lot of experience. This is what we bring to the table. You know, Eve tempts man, if you want to believe that.
Sure.
So how does private equity, how do they make the offer too good to pass up on?
Oftentimes they just go to publicly traded companies where they make a large offer to the shareholders and they have to take it. So there is no negotiating to be done. If they're taking something private.
Yeah, talk to me about somebody who's 50 million in revenue,
okay,
and their arc is to get to 500 million in revenue.
We're going to talk about franchises, like franchisors are some of like franchisors are some of the biggest sales right now, but a lot of them are hostile.
Rubio's.
Yeah. So I mean,
Tropical Smoothie.
76% of all franchises right now are taking private equity.
They have to.
Or have brought it on.
Right.
And
because they can't scale without it. So what is the deal that they get?
I wouldn't say they can't scale without it, because in franchising, you're diversifying that risk to the small business franchisees. I disagree that you can't scale without it. It's certainly faster, easier.
Boom.
Okay.
But time is the most valuable resource.
Can.
But time is the most valuable resource. As a franchisor, most of them, I wouldn't say all, McDonald's is a great sort of corner case.
Sure.
Most of them want out. Most of them want, Subway was like a great example. They stayed in probably too long.
They stayed in because of the scandal. They didn't have a choice. Nobody wanted them.
The child toucher?
I
is that what
think
you're talking about?
Yeah.
Because if they would have sold under duress.
Rourke made a terrible, I think it's one of their first really bad investments personally.
Interesting.
And right now, Subway in the United States is a really good case study, because Subway is a brand that is the largest sandwich chain in the world. It's also got the highest failure rate of any franchise in the United States.
Subway does?
Yep. They have more defaults on loans at the SBA than any other franchise system by percentage and by number.
Quiznos used to be the winner
Quiznos, I can tell you everything you want to know about
because they turned their backs on their franchisees.
worse. They pioneered. So one of the things that I talk to people about in franchising is that I have a lot of spies. I guess I'll say a lot of people that give me information that's happening inside the franchising world. Okay, because I've been fighting private equity firms in the franchise world for a long time.
Okay.
And I was the president of a franchise association of owners for a long time.
Okay.
And so,
Do you want to tell me which one?
yeah, it was called the Happy Handstands Franchisee Association, and it was all children's businesses that serve children.
Oh, that's awesome. Like gymnastics.
Kids gymnastics, baby
Daycare.
germs, yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
But our primary group was little gym owners, the little gym.
Okay, gotcha.
And they were acquired in a hostile takeover by a company called Unleashed Brands.
Unleashed Brands. Yeah, I feel like I know that.
Unleashed Brands is based out of Texas. At that point, they were backed by Princeton, MPK, AHR Capital, Ross Perot's family fund, and then all of those stakes got bought up by Seidler Private Equity, who owned the Padres.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Who I think they're selling right now.
Their family's in disarray right now. They're having some pretty big hostilities.
Yeah.
And Unleashed Brands and I have some pretty big hostilities. But when you look at the way that franchisors are selling to private equity, when they are approached, franchisors that start small generally, as a rule, care about those early franchisees. They care about what happens to them.
Success.
They have a personal vested interest in what happens. This is a legacy they're building. You want to talk about a family that is dedicated to that? Five Guys. Five Guys has multiple generations. Five Guys is five brothers, the five sons of the original owner, okay?
Yeah.
The Merrill family. And then they had a daughter, and so it was five guys and a girl. And
it.
all five of the sons are now executives in the company and the daughter. All five of them and the father and their children now have committed to never selling out to private equity.
And it's also interesting that they were slow to franchise.
They were slow to franchise.
Yeah.
And they've grown it carefully, and they've maintained quality. They keep the open kitchens, and their prices are a little high, but people are willing to pay for it. They still service a lot of small businesses. You can take that and you can juxtapose it with another brand that did the same thing. Okay.
Good example.
Jersey Mike's.
Okay.
Jersey Mike's, you have Peter Cancrow, who swore he was so committed to his franchisees. He was the shining beacon on a hill.
Is that Blackstone?
Okay. Let me get there.
You'll get there.
Yeah. So he was the beacon on a hill because when Quiznos pioneered the model that was strip mine your franchisees, take them for all they're worth, use the rebate revenue to exceed your royalty revenue, and then everybody loses except you, and you win in the end no matter what. That's what Quiznos pioneered, was literally leveraging your economies of scale to screw your franchisees instead of making it so they can succeed.
It's funny, you fast forward through that, but like a lot of people want to understand how they did that. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, when you thought you owned a territory, you'd find somebody across the street that was flying the flag of another Quiznos. And
that was a small part of a very big problem.
And another problem, which we're talking about economies of scale, forcing them to buy the equipment, the supplies, the materials at inflated prices.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the rebate revenue model.
That is
and
the rebate revenue.
they were the ones that pioneered it. So if you look at Domino's is a good example. They actually have a co-op for all of their supplies. And what happens is everybody buys from these central kitchens. They leverage their economies of scale for discounts. And at the end of every quarter, they dividend back the savings for everybody to each owner of a Domino's. Now, that was a Bain Capital save back when Bain Capital wanted to keep ownership for 10 or 12 or 15 years, and they needed them to succeed.
But they don't have those types of rentals.
It was before they exited after 3 years and started flipping because the carried interest loophole got faster.
Gotcha.
Right? And so Quiznos pioneered this exploitative model. What they did was they started expanding. They started putting them literally 2 and 3 on the same corner, right? Every time somebody was doing well, they'd put somebody competing with them across the street. They would break up their territories, but it didn't matter because they found that they could make more money by getting money out of those new openings and getting money out of their existing owners by pioneering the rebate revenue model.
So was the cannibalization idea or that concept, was it always part of this strategy where it's like, we'll just proliferate and open as many as we can, and then before it all blows up, we'll sell?
That only works in really a private equity environment. Quiznos decided they were going to try to get as much out. They realized the writing was on the wall that they had overexpanded. And so they kind of pushed the pedal all the way down to siphon as much money out as they could before it exploded.
And they had to know that this was going to happen?
Yes.
Okay.
Once they hit about 4,600 locations, which, I mean, just imagine how many, that's 10 per 4,600 locations. That is 100 locations per state. Can you imagine 100 locations of anything in Rhode Island? Right? No.
That's
okay.
amazing.
So they got to 4,900 locations. It was an astronomical number.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
For a fast casual restaurant shop that had toasted subs, but everybody else was starting to make them. What they did was they promised everybody this new marketing initiative. They sent out a contract. They said everybody sign it. They were super excited to finally have some backing from the corporate office. They all signed, and they told them they were going to leverage their economies of scale to start buying things at a discount. They moved them into a central kitchen like Domino's.
But it wasn't, in fact.
But they didn't tell the owners that Quiznos owned the central kitchen.
That's right.
Through a shell corporation. As soon as everybody signed an exclusive contract, they hiked the prices by triple. And it was only 3 months after that before their rebate revenue, their kickback revenue exceeded their royalty revenue. And once their kickback revenue exceeded their royalty revenue, it started a death spiral from which there was no recovery.
So the kickback revenue exceeded the royalty revenue.
Yeah. If you want to be a successful franchise, your royalty revenue should be enough. If you have successful franchisees, their excellence supports your brand. That was historically always the model until Quiznos.
So contrast that with Jersey Mike's.
So Jersey Mike's was the shining beacon on a hill, okay? They were the ones that didn't want all the kickback revenue. Most stores like Subway right now, they'll tell you have to renovate every 10 years, and then they'll make you use their vendors, and then you're gonna keep 40% of it, which means that they're paying 40% more than they would have to. Your franchisees could be more successful, but you want that kickback revenue. Jersey Mike's did the opposite.
Yeah.
When they wanted to make changes, they funded the build outs. They would loan it to them interest free.
Yeah.
They would leverage the entire economy of scale. They made sure that all of the meat was good quality. They made sure that training programs were excellent. Every time they wanted to improve something, the company funded it because the royalties were enough and they swore they were never going to sell.
This is interesting.
And finally, Blackstone came in with enough money they couldn't say no.
What was that, 10 billion?
Very close, yeah.
Somewhere around there.
And now every franchisee is,
forced to do what?
How long is Blackstone going to hold them?
Yeah. Well.
How much are they going to squeeze while they hold them?
Yeah.
How quickly is it going to start to diminish? I actually started a website called SaveJerseyMikes.com, and we had a Twitter page too, and we did a whole bunch. We had a series of podcasts of people trying to go and tell Jersey Mike's not to sell. We tried.
Yeah.
We really tried.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It was a great company, and I'll tell you why, and it still might be today, but the Jersey Mike's family invested in the company I own.
Okay.
And I remember COVID being so difficult for so many different business owners, and Jersey Mike's during COVID, say maybe it's following COVID, but 2021, 22, somewhere around there, was like, hey, we need you guys to redo the stores, and we'll foot the bill.
Correct.
And I was like, that is the most generous thing I have ever heard. You contrast that with Yum Brands, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Whatever franchise or organization you can think of, they say, well, we're mandating these changes. McDonald's now have to look post-apocalyptic, right? They have to look dystopian when you walk in.
Yep.
No more oranges and yellows, bright colors. Everything should be gray.
And some screens.
And some screens.
And some screens.
Which is an interesting conversation. I want to talk to you about that
Also
too.
nowhere to sit down, by the way.
No, we don't want you here.
We don't want you here.
No, we don't want you
Take
here.
it and get out.
This is not Starbucks. There is no culture. There is no community.
Starbucks got rid of it too. They're bringing back their seating now because they know it costs
They're
them.
bringing it. Yeah, they're bringing it back. God, there's so much fun stuff that we can talk about.
Yeah.
There is literally a wake of destruction that these companies have left behind them. But going back to the, they were like idealistic.
Yeah.
Jersey Mike's. They were like the shining beacon on a hill.
It broke
for franchises.
my heart when they sold.
When
because I was so sure they were going to keep lockstep with Five Guys and show it could be done the right way. Do you know how many CEOs call me every week and say they've recently resigned from a franchise because it was just acquired by private equity and they now want them to hurt their franchisees? I'm talking 4, 5, 6 a month. Call me because they've looked me up online and they're like, what can we do to stop this? They're about to hurt everyone we've cared about for years.
Gosh.
We were running a successful franchise. So many.
That's wild. I've got a friend in San Diego, lives in La Jolla, who tried to bring MLS, an MLS stadium to San Diego actually, and he failed because he wanted some government funding.
Yeah.
His name is Mike Stone, and he is on a rampage of buying bun cake franchises.
Oh, they're owned by Levine Lichtenstein.
Hundreds at a
So
time.
it's safe right now, but it won't be.
Yeah.
when
And
they
he
have to
comes from the
change.
world of TPG,
Yeah.
if you're familiar with TPG. So, he understands, right, economies of scale, and he understands.
So Nothing But Cakes is owned by one of the good private equity firms. They are at one of the. They're currently seated at one, but that fund is going to close soon. And then what happens? Fast Signs is also there. The FTC had opened a request for information from the public about franchising. And the Fast Signs and Nothing But Cakes franchisees came out in force and were like, you're wrong. Private equity is good. Look what they've done for our companies. You guys are great. You're at a great location to be. You're with the good guys.
That's right.
You're with the good guys. But what about everybody else?
Well, Fast Signs seems like they have the monopoly.
Fast Signs
in
is
the
great.
world,
Yeah.
in the world of signage.
Yeah, they do great. You don't know this about me, but I alluded to it. I've been in litigation with a franchise company for the last 5 years
Okay.
that acquired our brand in a hostile takeover.
This is the kids.
Unleash Brands
Unleash
acquired the Little Gym.
Okay.
And I was our union president when it happened,
Okay.
our franchise association president.
And how many at the time? How many franchise
286. There were
locations or
286
franchisees?
locations.
Locations. Okay.
In the U.S. We had international locations as well, but that was spun off through a different mechanism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when they acquired us, when I say it took minutes for we were founder owned and operated for 46 years, okay? And when you go into business to teach children, special needs kids, you don't go into it to make money. You go into it to make a difference. We made money. That was like the byproduct. Yeah. But nobody goes into working with kids because you want to churn as much revenue as you can.
Yeah, that's
not real.
That's definitely not their. That's not their incentive.
That is most definitely why Unleash Brands went into work,
Yeah.
like acquiring kids' brands, and it showed right away. They immediately told us to start hiring 14-year-olds to handle 4-month-old babies. Right? They immediately started telling us to cut staffing to unsafe levels. They started engaging in a bunch of anti-competitive behavior. They sent us new contracts that were supposed to override the contracts we had that were good for another 10 years. They wanted to increase the amounts we would pay on birthday parties by up to 94%.
The amounts you pay?
In royalties, right?
In royalties for birthday parties.
Like birthday parties, all kinds of things. But we were just coming out of COVID. We were kids' businesses coming out of COVID. We'd been shut down for a year and a half. Yeah. We'd barely survived if we were still in business.
Right.
And they wanted to squeeze immediately. There was no...
And this is the stripping effect.
This is the stripping effect. This is the strip mining, right? And what you can see, though, is there are limitations because Unleash Brands pushed too hard. They bankrupted hundreds of franchisees at Premier Martial Arts when they acquired them, right? We've seen record numbers of Urban Air franchisees right now that are asking to sell. They own them as well.
Is Urban Air like those jumpy places?
Yes, it's an indoor adventure park.
Yeah.
Only their indoor adventure park has engaged in a ton of cost-saving maneuvers that are extremely harmful to children.
It's like unsafe things.
Like this weekend, a 6-year-old girl died in one of their parks on Sunday.
What's interesting about the disclosure forms that you sign when you go there, you waive everything.
And then they're going to force you into a secret arbitration. Yeah. They're going to say you can't talk to the press. You signed a confidentiality agreement. You have an NDA because you signed your kid in at a birthday party.
It is wild. My son got punched in the face, or punched in the back of the neck at one of these ones in San Diego. And I remember asking for a copy of the agreement that I signed.
90 pages later.
Wild.
Yeah.
And we go back to the whole idea of McDonald's and dystopian and screens. It's just like
one of the biggest videos I've ever had go viral. I was on Sean Mike Kelly's podcast.
Yeah.
And we did a single minute on me saying, don't sign your kids in at these parks. You don't understand, kids are dying.
So what alternative do you have?
And it got 38 million views, I think. So people not realizing that they were giving this away.
Yeah.
Right? What alternative do they have?
Yeah.
There aren't very many because you have, at any given moment, and private equity firms have really perfected exploiting an arbitration agreement against their franchisees, against their customers, against their vendors, against their investors.
Well, that's the thing about these arbitration agreements. It's not in the public domain, right?
Yep.
It's like...
I guarantee our viewers don't know what we're talking about right now, but if we backed up and we said arbitration is, I'm just going to back up so that they get it. Like, arbitration is a secret court system that exists in the United States. Yeah. And in that secret court system, the entire thing is run by a monopoly or a cartel called AAA. That's the American Arbitration Association. And at AAA, 1.6 million cases each year are litigated. That means somebody has had one of these cases because they're confidential and they can't tell you about it. Yeah. And when you go into that courtroom, unlike going into a regular courtroom where you have a 50-50 to 51% chance if you're going in with an attorney that's willing to take your case, in arbitration, you will lose 97% of the time.
Oh, there's no jury of your peers.
No, and they don't have to follow the law. These are judges that are going to give you a cheaper case and a faster bench, like, of course, but it's not cheaper, okay? Like my arbitrator in my case.
Cheaper for who?
For them, it's a lot cheaper.
It's a lot cheaper for them.
My arbitrator was $27,000 a week. A week. And it was a year and a half, okay?
Wow.
$27,000 a week. And they're paid for by corporations, and they find for the corporations 97% of the time.
Well, that's who pays for the AAA thing.
That's who pays for AAA. And they don't have to follow the law, and you can't appeal. So when you get forced into one of these courtrooms, the judge can make up any rules they want, anything they want to do, and it will be upheld in a court of law because you are not allowed to appeal, and they do not have to follow the law. So when you ask what alternative do they have, you want to go to a nursing home for your parents? Arbitration. You want to take your dog to the vet? Arbitration. You want to go to a baseball game and buy a ticket? Arbitration. You want to buy a washer and dryer? You don't know it, but when you get home and open the box, on the documents inside that box, arbitration. And because you plug it in, it goes into effect, right? You want to go buy a Taylor Swift ticket and you need to bring an antitrust case because it was collusion and bots and they fixed prices? Arbitration. Ask Ticketmaster, they're trying to force everyone into mass arbitration right now, right? The Swifties are very upset about arbitration currently. They're learning the hard way, right? Plane tickets, your plane goes down, arbitration. You go on a cruise, you fall overboard, arbitration.
And the arbitration was a byproduct of large corporations, right? Lobbying the government saying, we've got a better, swifter system of negotiating.
It was, but I hesitate. When you actually see how it was conceived of, it actually seemed pretty great.
So walk us back. How did we get here?
Arbitration was conceived of because you had large corporations on even financial footing that wanted to deal with a dispute. Let's say that the boat hit the Key Bridge in Baltimore and it falls into the water. We've all heard about that recently, right?
Yeah.
Maritime law is a very nuanced area of law. Very nuanced, okay? So is international shipping law. So companies that had to deal with these very complex telecom or maritime disputes were getting very frustrated by getting assigned to random judges that didn't have any experience because they would spend millions of dollars in legal fees educating the judge.
Yeah.
And so they lobbied the government to be able to work together to choose a judge that they wanted to mutually agree upon, that they would have even financial footing before they already had the knowledge they needed, so they weren't wasting millions and millions and millions of dollars educating a judge on an area of law. In that theory of the law, that's a great idea.
It's a perfect application.
It's a great idea. The problem is that they wrote the law so badly that it allowed it to be overexpanded by corporations to be enforceable on anyone you sign a contract with, whether they knew they were signing a contract or not.
It's asymmetrical.
And as a result, you've ended up with freedom of contract from the Constitution superseding your freedom and right to a jury trial.
Yeah.
And that's what they've relied on. That's what Justice Roberts has relied on when he's authored every decision over the last 20 years that has expanded the scope of arbitration to now being where you go to work and your employer fires you because you go on maternity leave and they illegally let you go, and you're now forced into arbitration like 56% of all employees were 4 years ago. It's closer to 65% now. And you're in an arbitration where you're going to lose, and you don't know that that's what you signed. You needed a job. You signed your paperwork when you got there. You didn't have a lawyer at that meeting. There was no negotiation or meeting of the minds in that contract. This was forced on you, right? And I say that because there have been findings of people having it forced on them and it's still upheld. And then you have severe bastardizations in really popular cases that have happened recently. Like recently, Disney took a lot of flack and actually finally backed off a case because a woman died in their parks. And they wanted to force her into arbitration because 2.5 years earlier, her husband signed up for a Disney Plus trial to watch a movie. They never even signed the contract and renewed it. Yeah. And they said that the arbitration agreement in the TV streaming service should apply to getting on a roller coaster.
But they
somehow.
That.
They did because of immense public backlash. Yeah. But I said, when that happened, I said, this is going to happen in the next 2 years, and you watch. Yeah. And now what's just happened? Uber Eats had a 12-year-old buy a pizza from them 3 years ago. And 3 years later, a family was riding in the back of an Uber car where the driver wasn't properly vetted. And he ran a red light and their lives were destroyed. And they went to sue Uber and they said, nay, your 12-year-old daughter bought a pizza 3 years ago. She wasn't old enough to sign a contract, but you gave her the phone. And so she wasn't old enough, but your Uber Eats arbitration agreement applied to you getting in a vehicle, and the judge upheld it in the appeal. And now they're in arbitration.
Interesting.
So it has been so bastardized and so egregious, and it would be very easy to fix. It's seriously,
and
it's a one-sentence bill. It would.
And this is a private equity tool today.
Private equity tool of exploitation and corruption.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just a private equity tool. What it really is the ultimate cheat code for corporations.
Large corporations.
To all corporations, really, but yes, large corporations, to evade free market responsibility and reaction. Okay, like if a kid had fallen off of a zip line in a trampoline park in 1995, right, and they did nothing, and they were horrible to that family, and it came out that they had known kids were going to fall off that zip line, and they cut safety measures anyway. Right. Politicians would have been leading the picket line out in front of that store. Every news team in America would have been there banging on the door, and people would have known about the bad behavior. And they would have suffered real economic consequences. The free market would have responded, and they would have had to change their behavior.
This is the libertarian argument. Okay.
No, the libertarian argument is that freedom of contract prevails. But every libertarian I've ever talked to about this says we need laws on this, which is always shocking to me.
Yeah, that seems weird.
I got Hendricks in Arizona to vote for me, and he's the most libertarian legislator I've ever met to vote for a law we were trying to pass there to stop this. But today, a child, like there's a girl in Ahwatukee, Arizona right now who fell off that zip line at an urban air adventure park 3 weeks after there was a dispute, and the CEO, according to this letter we were given, the CEO said he wanted to cut the staffing on the zipline harness checkers to save $10,000 a year.
Interesting.
And the safety team was like, no, kids are gonna fall. 3 weeks later, Mia falls off of that zip line, right? And then they immediately say, you need to go to arbitration. Well, what if it's 30 kids that fell and they're all in secret arbitrations? 40 kids, okay? How about a 6-year-old girl on a go-kart that died this weekend? And they're all in secret arbitrations? Yeah. And so the world doesn't know, and they can carry on the bad conduct, and they have no reason to respond because they already control the judges in the arbitration system because they're repeat customers paying the whole way. Yeah. That is a cost of doing business that is far greater than any economic response they're going to get because no one's going to find out.
Who's going to challenge, and this is not a private equity issue, this is just, this is a legislation issue, but who's going to challenge these arbitration agreements to get sort of, not rescinded, but rewritten?
Great question. Yeah. That recently happened. It happened in a microcosm, and it's proven that we can do it, and we're trying to do it now. A bunch of people are trying to do it now. Yeah. About 5 years ago, another franchise system based out of Arizona, all the worst ones are Arizona and Texas, because they have the laws that protect corporations overall.
Yes.
They won't protect consumers.
Wait, I feel like Texas has great laws to protect consumers.
No. Not in franchising, not in small business.
Oh, interesting.
Their laws are incredibly favorable. That's actually why Twitter just moved their headquarters to Bedford, Texas. Because that's like the arbitration, and they added an arbitration agreement in that update, is because it's like the arbitration capital for corporations in the U.S. after Maricopa County, Arizona.
Wow.
So, Massage Envy, you heard of them? Private equity owned franchise based out of Arizona, corporate law, contract law based in Arizona, had 181 women that got raped in their facilities. And when they signed in on their phone to sign in for their massage, they opted in to an arbitration agreement, a confidentiality agreement. And when they would go to talk to the press, or they would get threatened with a lawsuit. No, you signed in. You can't tell anyone you got raped in our facilities.
And these are employees that are signing in to work.
Some employees, a few of them were, but mostly they were customers signing in at the iPad at the front desk to go get a massage that got raped.
Oh, goodness.
And sexually assaulted.
I'm thinking the reverse.
No.
Oh.
When I say they have it on both sides, the employees have one, the customers have one, the vendors have one, the investors have one.
Amazing.
Okay, so these customers went for a massage, got raped, 181 of them over a few years.
They're all female.
No, there were actually a couple males.
What?
There were a few males. So what happens is, and they find out they're sexual offenders working in these places, that they didn't do proper background checks, horrifying things,
so
okay?
who owns Massage Envy?
Massage Envy,
private equity.
It was owned by private equity. It was just shifted to somebody else. Okay. But what happens is 3 brave women crossed and violated their agreements, their arbitration rulings and their confidentiality agreements. They went to USA Today and the Washington Post, And they told them what was happening.
Yeah.
And in a unanimous change to the Federal Arbitration Act,
Yeah.
they have now made it illegal to force anyone into arbitration in cases of rape or sexual assault or harassment.
There we go.
We
but
could
not
do
if a
this.
child falls off a
Let's
trampoline.
just talk about a simple thing we could do. Okay, we don't even have to change all of it. Let's just change one single phrase.
Yeah.
All arbitrations that fall governance under the Federal Arbitration Act in any jurisdiction must be held to the legal standards and the laws of the jurisdiction under which it's litigated. Okay? We'll just make one sentence. The judge has to follow the law. Just that one.
Yeah.
Just one. Judges must follow the law. Do you think anyone would sign an arbitration agreement if they knew that they could be made to do anything, that anything could be done to them?
Like judges could be. Is that what you're intimating?
I'm saying, do you think any person would ever sign an arbitration agreement if they knew that it wasn't an alternative dispute resolution?
I think
that was fair?
99% of the government, or 99% of the population doesn't know what an arbitration agreement
Correct.
is.
The average family of 4 has signed somewhere between 260 and 1,200.
Yeah.
Everything in their house is an arbitration agreement. Everywhere they live.
So explain to me this. So if you've been raped or sexually assaulted, then you don't have to agree to the terms of the arbitration agreement. But
you can agree to it, but they can't uphold it.
But they can't uphold it. Okay, great. So you can opt in.
Yes, and this includes if it happens at work.
Okay.
Because most employees have an arbitration agreement at work as well.
Right. You were explaining that, right? So, but we couldn't revise it based off of if a kid's injured at a jumpy place?
No. I mean, we could. They won't.
Why?
Why?
Doesn't that seem ridiculous? If
Depends on who's invested in that business.
And so it's large corporations that are forcing.
FranPac, and you have to understand how many lobby groups have fought to keep arbitration in place. It is not just the franchisors. It is not just the bankers. It is not just the theme parks. It is not just the realtors. It is not just the energy companies. It is not just the fire companies.
Not just the music
It
venues.
is not just the music venues. It is not just the airlines. It is every single major corporation in the world has lobbied to keep these in place because it hides their conduct.
Interesting. Okay.
And it is a cost of doing business, and they have a 97% chance of winning.
Okay. We have focused on arbitration a lot. We should. What should we talk about next?
What do you want to talk about next?
I mean, I want to talk about what you're doing. I want to talk about the advocacy work that you're doing to fight the good fight against private equity. That's what I want. Yeah.
Okay.
Because arbitration is like, that's like, I don't know, a raindrop in a torrential downpour.
I mean, if it's a torrential downpour, to me that would probably be the aqueduct that opened up to flood it, because it allows so much of the evil conduct to be not only continuing but actually exacerbated. They're so emboldened by what arbitration provides them in the form of cover.
Yeah.
That it's hard to overstate how important arbitration is in bringing the free market back to the free market.
But how do you have, and this is, I don't know, this is maybe a theoretical question, but I'm 46.
Yeah.
I've owned a company now for almost 22 years, which is Cardiff.
Uh-huh.
We started in 2004, so next year we'll be 22 years old. Following 2008 and the great financial crisis with the Dodd-Frank Act being passed, you saw this great consolidation of power and influence and money, where it was the haves versus the
That didn't really start there, though. That started with, you have to go back way further.
in my generation.
I'm your generation. I'm 2 years younger than you.
Okay, but in my generation, we've seen the divide between haves and have-nots.
Yeah, that started, it started with Carter. It was exacerbated by Reagan, but it was set on fire by Clinton with the repeal of Glass-Steagall.
So what is that?
The repeal of Glass-Steagall. Glass-Steagall was a bunch of laws that were put into place sort of reactionary to the crash of 29 almost, right? It came later, but it was
70 years later.
It was reining in some of the more rampant freedom that existed through monopolies, through private equity, through the ability to underfund things in banking. It was a big collection of capabilities. And the repeal of Glass-Steagall passed with 97% of the House.
Wait, wasn't this the Anti-Monopoly Act?
Glass-Steagall?
Yeah.
It was part of it, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It was part of it.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep, that was part of it. So
this was passed in the late, this is with the Great Deal or whatever.
So this happened
or the New Deal or whatever.
in 98. by Clinton with 97%
Right.
of the House and Senate. So both parties voted for it. And then you have, at the same time, they expanded private equity's capabilities simultaneously. In the 70s, private equity could only have 35 investors and $1 million. Otherwise, they had to report to the SEC. You had to know that they had
What's that book I read about private equity?
plunder.
No, was
These are the plunderers.
it about KKR? It was about like the Heinz. Was it Heinz? What was that?
It wasn't plunder. KKR is all about.
Barbarians at the Gate.
Oh, that's a good one too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've read a bunch of them, but These Are the Plunderers has also got a lot on KKR and Apollo.
Interesting.
But
So you said it started early. It started with like Carter.
it started with
and
Carter.
Reagan, and then
Reagan made it
Clinton.
worse. Clinton, if Clinton dumped lighter fluid on it, Obama set it like an atom bomb when he pulled all the guardrails off. Again, with bipartisan support.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's not a left or a right, right? You have Carter.
Well, the money's going
lefty.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Really, everything can be traced to 2010. If you want to put a pin in what
2010.
2010.
Okay.
2010 is when Citizens United passed.
And what is Citizens United?
Citizens United was a Supreme Court case that gave PACs freedom of speech and said they could spend unlimited amounts of money in elections.
Political action committees.
Political action committees
Interesting.
could spend unlimited sums of money
Right. To
in
influence elections.
To influence elections.
That's right.
If you want to know where everything turns, that's where it turned. Yeah. There was another case before that that's actually being challenged on its way to the Supreme Court right now that said how much individuals could donate to those PACs, and that's about to be relooked at. And when I tell you, when it's time, Maine passed a law that limited how much people could contribute to PACs. And that's never been looked at by the Supreme Court in a meaningful way in modern times, okay? Yeah. And it was immediately, the state of Maine was immediately sued by two PACs, but that's what Maine wanted. They wanted to get it on a track to the Supreme Court to try and challenge it.
It's interesting.
And I am counting on every follower I have and every follower of every friend I have online to come march with us when it's time. Yeah. We want the Supreme Court to know how serious this is.
It is interesting. You listen to fellas like Elon Musk, who really did use $300 million of his own cash, but also influence.
240, but yeah.
Yeah, to influence the outcome of a presidential election.
He ran just one $20 million example was he was the one that made like 3 shell corporations, which we just finally broke through and figured out who was running them, that did the ads that were saying that Trump was pro-life and wasn't going to support a federal abortion ban. And so it was giving permission to the left to support Trump. Like that was one example of an ad that he spent $20 million on, just that ad.
Gosh, that's so wild.
Yeah.
Influencing elections. But I guess
that's why that's why monopolies have been able to run roughshod over this country. That's why the consolidation has been allowed to happen. That's why no one went to jail after 2008's crisis. That's why nobody's going to go to jail for anything else that's happened.
But it speaks to what I'm talking about, which is like after 2008, after the great financial crisis, it really did seem like you have this huge consolidation of power and influence and money, and private equity there was a demonization of banks that happened following the 2008 crisis. I don't know if you remember, but like banks were the problem, right?
I mean, they were a big part of the problem, but they were just existing in the system that we allowed to be created for them to do that in.
Yeah, I guess you set the rules. Yeah. Right, and then
what is it Trump said when he was debating Hillary, and she said he doesn't pay any taxes, and he says you've been in Congress for 20 years and you gave me those rules. That makes me smart. That makes me smart. Somebody that doesn't know how to write a tax code to serve its people.
Yeah, I remember that.
You know, that's what it was. You know, they were allowed to run free and do whatever they wanted, and they took a lot of liberties and they did a lot of terrible things, and people weren't bad at banks.
Is there anything good? I guess my point is, right, with the consolidation of power and influence and money, private equity has almost become the good guy.
No,
that's
absolutely
not true. No, okay. So in the world of finance, or as Jamie Dimon would call it, finance.
Although today, Barron's tried to make them sound like the good guys. They were like meet the private. They had a big headline company? Today. Yeah, Barron's today had a headline that was meet the private equity billionaires that are the new geniuses of Wall Street or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's something to be said about, right, saving Red Lobster. I like cheddar skulls.
Call Red Lobster a very small
Yeah, it's a small company. I get it.
No, I wouldn't call it a small company, but Red Lobster wasn't just saved by private equity. Red Lobster was destroyed by private equity, and a new private equity firm might be saving it.
Sure.
But it was still bankrupted because they sold all the land out from under the stores and then made collusion deals and anti-competitive deals to force companies to sell specific things to them at inflated prices.
So Red Lobster owned the land underneath their
Yep,
locations?
they sure did.
Interesting. Why is that? I'll ask you this question, okay? We'll pivot away from what I'm saying because where I'm going you don't like.
That's okay. I don't mind if I like it. This is how I grow.
Well, I just wonder, are there good guys in private equity?
Yeah.
There are good guys.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I work for one.
So like Travis, for example, with Open Teams.
Great guy.
Great guy.
Doing the right thing.
And so why is that, in the world of private equity, why is it so binary where there's good and bad?
I mean,
why does it not seem more nuanced, I guess is my question.
The best way I can describe it is that every single private equity firm has to choose what they are. And 90% of them make a choice early on to say that we're here to make money. We're not here to make a difference. We're not here to make communities. We're not here to make growth. We're not here. It used to be that getting it back to IPO was the ultimate goal. And so you saw growth and you saw things get built and you saw things get saved.
But it's maximizing shareholder value. That's the only thing they
There are no shareholders.
Well, I mean,
there's general
there
partners.
are general partners, right?
Yeah, but they're doing all of that. Private equity firms don't maximize even their investor value. They maximize the general partner's value, usually at the expense of the pensions that are put at risk that actually bear the risk.
That they're borrowing from, right?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
So they diversify all of the risk across pensions and your mom and dad and your 401k. They never risk anything.
This is the Toys R Us example. Right?
Toys R Us is a good example, but it's one of 1,000. Yeah. I could literally give you 1,000 examples. Just this year, we could look at Party City, right? We could look at Bed Bath & Beyond, right? We could look at Big Lots just this year. We could look at Sports Authority was one that went absolutely that was exploited and extracted, right?
Sports Authority, interesting.
When you look at the companies that have been bankrupted by private equity, you have to look, it's not a micro case, right? You have to look in the actual landscape of what the impact is, because a lot of it happened in 2008 and just after, right? And now it's happening again. First of all,
what's happening?
So first of all of these leveraged buyouts, which if your audience doesn't know, that means that a private equity firm buys a company, but they make the company owe the debt. They don't bear any responsibility. They bear no risk. So they say, I want to buy.
This is like selling the land.
This water bottle company.
Yeah.
And it's going to cost me $1 billion. I'm going to put in $10 million of my own money. Okay. The rest of it, I'm going to borrow, and I'm going to make the water bottle company pay it back. It's like you buying a car and saying the car owes the note. The car has to go out and make money to pay itself back, which Elon says is a great idea with a self-driving car. But I disagree.
Maybe it works.
Okay, because if you really want to look at it and zoom out, that it's worse than that, because even if the car owed the note, that might be manageable if it could go out and drive itself and make some money and get some fares. But how could it keep succeeding if the guy that bought that car then sold its parking space out from under it and made it lease it back? And then it sold its sweetheart deal for gas. And then it acquired the company that it was getting all of its maintenance done at and started charging hiked up prices because they had a monopoly on it now. You have to understand that it's not one problem. It's the fact that they've gotten so comfortable with exploiting every possible facet in its most pirate-like form. And you're strip mining not just the middle class and the small business class and the entrepreneurial class of America, the housing market. You're not just strip mining that, you're strip mining American excellence and ingenuity. Because when you're willing to make money instead of making things great, what happens is we have companies that would have succeeded were it not for private equity, that were succeeding. Joann's, best example. Joann's doubled their customer base during COVID because people got hobbies.
This is Joann's Fabrics.
Joann's Fabrics.
Okay.
Doubled their customer base during COVID because people got hobbies.
They were a COVID darling.
Yes, they were taken back private, and immense sums of debt were stacked on top of them. Then they sold off real estate, they sold off all of their infrastructure, they cut all their staffing, they sold off all of their extra assets. But worse than that, 97% of their stores were profitable. 97% of their stores were profitable. Mm-hmm. And it didn't matter because all of these companies that are acquired through these leveraged buyouts are bought using adjustable rate debt. And that adjustable rate debt could not stay zero forever. It was great from 2008 until 2021. It was great. You could buy whatever you want and strip mine the heck out of it, and they might keep inching along. But what happened is interest rates started to go up, and that adjustable rate debt came calling. And that is why we have watched 4 years in a row of record bankruptcies of private equity-owned companies. This year, 70% of all major bankruptcies in the United States are private equity-owned companies. Last year, 63%.
So who's influencing Jerome Powell? Today is a great example.
Don't even get me. I'm so mad.
I want to know.
I would like to. Where did Jerome Powell work before he was the chair of the Fed?
Yeah, he worked on the private equity side of things.
He worked at Carlyle Group. He was a board member at Carlyle, one of the most abusive private equity firms in history. They literally made 30,000 senior citizens homeless, and like 26,000 of them died under Carlyle's care while he was a board member.
I guess I have 3 minutes to close. I'm going to ask you this question just because the Fed met today.
Yeah.
I could talk to you forever.
Let's do it.
I want to have you back. And do you have a podcast?
They want me to, really. Everybody wants me to so badly.
You know what? Sorry.
Oh, they want me to.
You could do this in the same way, and I'm going to mention somebody you may not like him, but in the same way that Tucker Carlson or even Megyn Kelly.
Tucker, I like Megyn.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Like you don't even need a guest.
I love people to argue with.
Well, you could argue against yourself.
I could.
But I have a
I
question.
do that all day.
Before we wrap, Fed meets today.
Yeah.
Who's influencing? Trump is, at best, a Manchurian candidate. Who is influencing Trump?
Yeah.
To get him to
So
influence
I want to explain that really, really firmly and fervently.
Do it in 3 minutes.
Right now, people are trying to say that bringing down that rate is going to help with home rates. It doesn't. Those are tied to the bond market. Okay,
Sure.
They're tied to treasuries. That's not happening. But they've convinced the public that
That's
by
just good
lowering
marketing.
rates, it's going to help them. It's great marketing.
That's right.
The reality is that BlackRock controls our government. Okay, Blackstone controls our government. Their board members have control of all of the pensions of every federal worker in the United States and have for 20 years. But they also have extreme influence over the Economic Advisory Council and over lobbying, right? We have private equity firms all across America in every iteration that have been pushing for these interest rates to come down, and they will not help homeowners. They will not help the regular working class Joe. They only help private equity, and these big corporations are the only ones that can afford to leverage it. And they're going to use lower interest rates to buy more housing, to buy more corporations, to further consolidate, and to further strip mine and abuse and exploit the working and middle class of America, and to continue to erode American excellence until there is nothing left, and they will move on to the next country and wash and rinse and repeat again unless we do something.
I think it's a perfect way to end it. I think that's where I was headed with my argument, which was post-Great Recession, the divide between haves and have-nots have increased disproportionately so, at least in the United States, contextually. And you can see that consolidation of power and influence and money.
Yep.
And it's the corporations that are writing the laws. It doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right.
Yep.
Was it you who said you're purple?
Yeah, I'm deep purple.
You're deep purple. It doesn't matter.
I'm here for the people. I don't care about those parties. 2 wings, 1 bird. We've had 30 years of identical economic, foreign, and fiscal policy, no matter who's in office. They keep us fighting over abortion and trans rights. And that way, as long as we hate one another, we never work together to hate them. And I'm sorry. I hate them.
Yeah.
Just saying it.
Perfect way to end it. How do people get in touch with you if they would like to have you on their podcast, or if they want to learn more about this de novo private equity company?
You can find me at tiffanycianci.com. You can see me at Tiffany Cianci on YouTube and TikTok. You can see me at the Vino Mom on Instagram and X.
Why can't we find you on Instagram? Why is it so hard?
I don't know. Everybody else finds me.
Everyone else finds
Everyone else finds me.
Okay, everyone else can find you except
I'll get
me.
it for you.
But it's the Vino Mom.
Yep. I was a sommelier once upon a time.
Okay, but we can't
For funsies.
get Tiffany Cianci on Instagram. It's the Vino Mom.
I probably could. I've just had it a long time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it was a pleasure to have you on. This is a noble fight.
Thank you.
And this is a fight, I think that's incomprehensible to most people.
Yeah.
Right? The stuff that you talked about of arbitration agreements, I don't think anyone realizes that over the course of their life, they're signing 300 right, arbitration agreements, which is limiting their ability to have rights.
Correct.
Right? They're going into it almost seems like
They're
China.
going to a lose-lose situation.
Yeah, they're going into a court like China with like a 99%.
Banana Republic, 100%.
Yeah, that's what it seems
gonna
like.
lose.
And no one would think that
And
that exists.
that's a monopoly I want to break up. I want to break up the arbitration monopoly with every molecule of my being.
Thank you for being here, Tiffany.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome to meet you.